I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. So today we're going to talk about anxious thoughts. And I know that this conversation is going to resonate with so many people. When I sat down to create the outline for the episode, it brought me back. I was just like, dang, I was so stuck in my head. I was such an overthinker. I was constantly analyzing, constantly scanning, constantly preparing, and I could feel it in my body. Like when you are constantly in your head and you're having so many anxious thoughts and you're thinking a lot, like it really affects how you feel. And it generates so many sensations and symptoms and just like tension and fear and distress. So I think it's going to be so helpful to talk about anxious thoughts and like why you feel like you can't stop overthinking and how to start breaking this cycle. Because I'm sure if you hit play on this episode, you have that feeling of my brain just won't stop. Like my brain never shuts up. And if I try to relax and even in calm moments, my brain will say, well, what if you feel anxious? What if you panic? What if people see you feeling anxious? What if you pass out? What if this isn't just anxiety? What if you lose all control? What if you go crazy? What if you are going crazy? I could go on and on and on, right? And the what if thoughts in the moment when you're already feeling anxious are like some of the worst, right? Because your brain goes to, what if I can't escape this? What if this doesn't stop? Like, what if I can't get home quickly enough? Or what if I can't get to safety? Or what if I need help and there's nobody around? Or one of the worst ones, what if I have a panic attack? Like one of the worst ones I've ever had. And when you have thoughts like this, your body reacts, like I was saying, right? You can feel it in your chest. Like you can feel your heart pounding. You can feel hot, sweaty, tingly. Your stomach might turn, or your head might feel light and dizzy, or maybe you just feel that whoosh. I know that was such an indicator to me of my body's going into panic mode. Like it literally felt like this whoosh. It literally was like a whoosh of adrenaline almost going all the way from my head to my toes. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling. And of course, when you experience the sensations and symptoms, your brain goes, see, something is wrong, right? And there goes the loop. Like you're stuck on this loop of fear. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is exactly what happens to me, trust me, I freaking get it. When I was struggling with panic and agoraphobia, I really wasn't the person who was carrying around a bunch of like visible safety items. I wasn't carrying around like a water bottle or ice packs or snacks or medications. I was carrying around a shit ton of mental safety behaviors. Like I was constantly rehearsing what I would do. Like if I felt anxious, if I panicked, I would play out worst case scenarios. I would scan my body. Like, am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling this sensation? Am I feeling that symptom? I would plan for how I would escape in case I did feel really anxious or panic. I would try so hard to think my way into certainty. And it probably looked like, well, I know it looked like from the exterior, like I was functioning, like I was doing all the things, I was fine. But internally, it was constant chaos and noise. And what makes it so hard when you have all this mental stuff, right, is you carry your brain with you everywhere you go. It's not like you can say, "Nope, not today, brain. Like, you're staying home so I can have some freaking peace." This is what makes the mental stuff feel so hard and so impossible because you really truly feel trapped in your own head and you feel trapped in fear. And it truly feels like these are loops that you can't get yourself out of. So I want to break apart these loops because most people, I would say all people, struggling with panic disorder and agoraphobia are stuck in one of these loops or both. So the first loop is you have this subtle thought, right? This quiet thought, this what if thought. And then you start to worry, right? You're really starting to think about it. And then you start experiencing that physical anxiety, the sensations, the symptoms. And then it's like, oh gosh, now I'm having more thoughts about how I'm feeling. And it just goes in this loop, right? It repeats itself. The other loop is maybe for you, it starts primarily with a sensation or a symptom. And your brain is so in that hyper aware state that it picks up on a sensation or symptom so quickly. And then you start to have the thoughts, right? Like, oh shit, what if this goes there? What if this means something? What if, what if, what if? And then you have all this worry. Then more physical anxiety is created, right? More sensations, more symptoms, and it goes on this vicious loop. And both of these really suck, right? Because they create so much distress, so much discomfort, so much anxiety. And maybe for you, you're like, Shannon, it's a mix of both. Like, it's not one or the other. Like, I get caught in both of these loops. And I get it. I was that person too. And the reality is, it feels so intense, and your brain really does think, we need to do something about this. Like, we need to solve this. We need to make this stop. So you end up thinking more, right? You end up engaging more, which creates more anxiety and more thinking, and around you go. And it's so, so hard with the mental stuff because you can't just stop thinking, right? This is what our brains do. They think and they're creative and they're protective. So you cannot just control your thoughts. Like you can't stop them. We all have thousands of automatic thoughts per day that just happen. Like they come in, they come out. But the more you try not to have certain thoughts or think something, the louder the thoughts get. So if I say to you, right, don't think about the last time that you felt anxious, don't think about the last time you had a panic attack, what just happened? Exactly. When we say, right, don't think about it, try to make yourself not have the thoughts, we have more of them. So when you say, I need to stop thinking about panicking because I really don't want to panic, your brain goes, panic, 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 panic. And then, of course, you think something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is just doing what our brains do. And the issue isn't that the thought showed up, that you had that initial thought. The issue is really what happens next. So I always say the real problem is not your thoughts. I know that they can really suck. I know that they can cause a lot of really real sensations and symptoms, but the problem does not lie in your thoughts. The problem does not lie in what if I feel anxious? What if I panic? The problem really lies in the urgency that follows the thoughts, like what you do after you have the thoughts. And this was so true for me. The problem was in the mental scrambling, right? The oh shit, I've got to do something. I always say, I would always go into that oh shit mode. And when you go into that oh shit mode and you're rehearsing and solving and analyzing and you're trying to feel better and you're trying to feel calm and you're trying to quiet it and all the things, your brain truly learns this is what we need to do to keep you safe, right? We're being safe. All this doing is keeping you safe. So it keeps sending the thoughts. And it's not because you're actually in danger. It's not because there's anything wrong with you that you're broken, but your brain just thinks that it's truly helping you to survive. And I know this can be really hard to hear because I think back and I'm like, if somebody told me your thoughts aren't the problem, I would be like, try living in my brain for an hour a day. Like, not even. Like, you're truly convinced your thoughts are the problem. If you could just stop them, if you could just control them, if you could just quiet them, like everything would get better. But there are ways that you can do that, right? That are likely not what you're doing right now, right? Because what you're doing right now, the rehearsing, the solving, the analyzing, that's what's keeping the thoughts going. So we need to shift things. We need to do things differently, right? We need to release this tight grip of control that we have. And we need to start practicing a little bit more allowance. And I know we all here, you've probably heard like of acceptance, right? You need to practice actually accepting anxiety and accepting the thoughts and letting yourself have them. And it's so freaking hard because it's like, what does that mean? What does that even look like? So I want to share a really helpful shift with you. And this is something that I massively work with my students on and my clients. Instead of trying to stop your thoughts or quiet them or control them or replace the thoughts, you simply just practice naming it, and that's it. But it's not just naming the thought, it's really naming the experience. So, what I mean by this is when your mind starts racing and throwing out, what if I pass out? What if this isn't just anxiety? What if I lose all control? Like, what if this is going to be really bad? Instead of immediately going into that oh shit mode, that fix it mode, you do your best to slow things down and you say, I'm noticing my mind is really racing right now. I'm noticing I'm feeling really anxious right now. I'm noticing that I'm feeling really scared right now. Because here's the thing, what most of us do is that we try to bypass acknowledging how we feel and go straight into that solving. Because, of course, you don't want to feel that discomfort. Of course, you don't want more sensations and symptoms to happen. Of course, you don't want to have a panic attack. So we think if I just bypass what's happening, if I don't acknowledge it and I just fix it, then I'm going to feel better. But we can't do our way out of feeling anxious. We try to think our way out of feeling anxious without ever admitting and acknowledging, oh, I'm anxious right now. And you would be so surprised. Maybe you've practiced this and you've seen this, but for most people, this is not something that they do and have practiced. But when you start practicing this, it gives anxiety space and you start to see, like, oh, if I just allow myself to acknowledge how I'm feeling and I give it a little bit of space, it doesn't continue to throw all the thoughts. It doesn't continue to generate more sensations and symptoms. It instead of going up, 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 starts to sort of just stay where it is or even slowly starts to come back down. And not that this is always the case, right? Because I always say you're not going to do one thing and have it be like this magical fix, right? Like, oh, I tell myself this or I do this, and then like I immediately start feeling less anxious. That can't be the goal ever, right? The goal is really just to like support yourself through what you're feeling. But so many people will say, Shannon, instead of jumping straight into that oh shit mode, I really tried my best to just say, okay, we're feeling anxious right now. We're scared. Like, this is scary. And I want to fix it and I want to do something about it, but I'm going to do my best to resist. And this is where the magic lies. Like, when you really work on resisting all of that doing and you just allow yourself to say, I'm anxious right now. This sucks. This is scary. It actually allows anxiety to just be there, right? And not continue to be so heightened. And this is what helps to break that loop. When you immediately jump to that, the reassuring, the analyzing, debating, planning, rehearsing, your brain is always going to interpret that as what you're experiencing is dangerous. We need to keep being in this fix it mode, right? We need to keep trying to make it go away. But when you slow things down and you just allow yourself to acknowledge it, to name it, and when you just say, this is anxiety, this is my brain looking for certainty, this is my brain just doing what it does, you interpret that automatic chaos, right, that wants to ensue. You're no longer pushing it away. You're no longer feeding it. You're just acknowledging it. And that acknowledgement alone begins to soften the intensity. Now, let me be real honest with you. This sounds simple, and it really is simple, but it's not easy because this is probably a way in which you have not been responding to anxiety for months or years or even more. And also, doing this when you're calm is one thing, but doing this when your heart is pounding, right? And your brain is screaming, like, oh shit, do something, this can't happen. It's not easy. It's a practice. And it really requires repetition and compassion and patience with yourself when you do fall back into the old loop, because that's going to happen. You're human, right? But this is how you start stepping out of that loop. So this shift from less control, right? We're going to try to loosen our grip on control and just instead of pushing the thoughts away, trying to get things to quiet, trying to calm yourself, replacing the thoughts, we're going to do our best just to say, this is anxiety, right? And this is such a massive part of what I teach because back when I was struggling, if somebody had told me this, it would have changed so much for me. It would have made things so much less hard because I was constantly in that fight it, fix it, oh shit mode. And that's what kept me in so many of those cycles of fear and distress and just a lack of self trust. So, this is a really simple, not easy shift that you can start to practice. And I really encourage it because it's so, so helpful. So I want to tell you this. If you're somebody who feels like your brain never shuts up, like you can't even watch TV, you can't watch a movie without scanning and being in your brain, if exposures feel incredibly unbearable because your mind is always going to the what ifs and the worst case scenarios and catastrophizing, if you are constantly feeling exhausted because you're in your head preparing for danger, like trying to do all the things to avoid feeling, you are not just an overthinker. You are caught in mental safety loops. And the mental safety loops are often the hardest ones to spot because they kind of feel invisible and automatic, but they are learned. They're learned behaviors, and anything that can be learned can be unlearned. And I saw this for myself, of course, and I see this in so many of my clients and students. It is some of the hardest work that you'll do, but it is the most worthwhile work that you do because you're not just an overthinker. You're not just an anxious person, blah, 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 all that. You're just caught in some patterns and you can unlearn them and learn new ways of approaching your thoughts and your feelings and yourself, which is going to help to quiet things down. So I have to tell you, of course, that I have a very specific mini course on anxious thoughts, and it's called Freedom from Anxious Thoughts. Because so many people hear, just accept the thoughts, just let them be, stop trying to control them, all this stuff. But nobody teaches you what to actually do when a what if thought shows up. Like, how to respond to very specific what if thoughts. Like, what do you actually tell yourself? What does it look like in real time? And nobody teaches you how to stop rehearsing for those worst case scenarios and how to stop turning every sensation and symptom into a catastrophe and how to break those loops in real time. I post reels on Instagram, these like I call them me versus brain reels. And really, it's in an effort to show people, of course, like you're not alone. This is like a normal human brain caught in some anxious loops, and this is what it looks like. But I try to show you how you can work through that in real time. So I have those, but in this course, we really dive in and I teach you this is what it looks like. Okay. And this is what's going to be helpful. And this is how you can approach your thoughts and feelings in a much healthier way so that you can actually quiet things down and feel a lot more safety, a lot more trust, and a lot more peace in your brain and in your body. And this isn't about positive thinking, right? It's really about understanding the cycle and learning a completely different, new, healthy response to it. So if you felt seen in this episode, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is me, Shannon, I'm so sick of it. Like, I just want my brain to quiet. I really want to encourage you, check out this mini course. I'll link to it in the show notes. And I promise you, I give you lots of practical stuff. I am not that person that's like woo woo and just do this and just breathe and just like journal. And it's none of that nonsense. Like, it's very practical what to do in the moment to actually help support your brain so that it can learn how to approach things differently. So please remember, you don't need to eliminate your anxious thoughts. We don't need to get rid of them. We just really need to stop fighting them in ways that keep them alive. And your brain learned this pattern, and you can teach it something new. Like, your brain is capable of so much peace, but you got to do a little bit of work, right, to help get it there. And that's okay. It's totally possible, and you are absolutely capable. We often, of course, don't give ourselves nearly enough credit. But when you slow things down and you practice responding to your thoughts and your feelings in a healthy way, that's when things change so dramatically. Okay. I hope this conversation has been so helpful and you've taken away some really helpful things. And until next time, keep taking healthy action. I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.